What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra. We are back with another Arghgodzirra'S Top 10, where I throw a list together and we discuss it in the comments down below. Thank you for joining me as always. If you haven't caught it already, my first Top 10 video dropped yesterday. We covered my Top 10 video games of 2019. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll link it in the description for you guys down below. But I figured now that we've discussed what I thought were the best games of 2019, it's time to talk about those that totally missed the mark in what I'm going to be calling my top 10 disappointing / worst games of 2019. Now remember, just like the first video, all of these are based on my own personal opinion, and I know everyone, has their own different opinions. Not everyone is going to be agreeing with mine. That's perfectly fine. This is exactly what these types of videos are made for. I want to stir some discussion. I want to get the Godzirra Nation chatting amongst one another. I just want to engage you guys with something a little bit different. So with that being said, let me know in the comment section down below what game or games you have played this year that you really feel fell flat and let you down. Let's discuss it. Possibly could be a game that's going to be on my list coming up right now, which we are kicking off with number 10. In the number 10 slot, I've got Narcos Rise of the Cartels, which is obviously a game taken from the Netflix series Narcos. I thought the premise behind it was really good. I've said it before, however, when it comes to films and television series crossing over to video game platform, it's really hit and miss. Some can hit it out of the park, and some barely struggle to keep their head afloat, and this is one that struggled to keep its head afloat. It's a tactical game set in the world of the Netflix series and allows you to choose to play on either the DEA side or the Narcos side, but I feel you're probably going to grow bored with the game long before you decide to give it a second playthrough, which is unfortunate. At its core, it is not broken, it's not offensive at all. It's just really cold and empty, and you don't have any emotion playing it. It's rather joyless. It feels like your typical cash grab. Just the company thinking that the television series is going so well, we can capitalize and make a video game. And you can clearly see that it's well and truly fallen short of the mark. There are interesting elements about the game, don't get me wrong, but the game overall fails to deliver much of anything to anybody, which is an absolute shame. Coming in at number 9, another horror game. Surprise, surprise. We have Submersed, which is another survival horror game, which seems to be still fairly niched considering the amount of games that are now coming out within that genre. With that being said, Submersed doesn't do anything to push that genre forward in a meaningful way. It plays on the general fear of sharks, which a lot of people do have, and the story unfolds beneath the surface of the ocean, but still leaves a lot to be desired. A game like this could have been phenomenal, but it just leaves a lot begging. It's really short. It feels like it's underdeveloped, especially with the narrative, and frustratingly difficult enemies popping up at random times are some of the biggest issues this game has. Not to mention, the game is absolutely full of bugs that stops it from reaching its full potential. This could have been a real standout within the survival horror genre. However, the game might be called Submersed. However, I'd be looking for a name change, and I'd probably call it Drowned, because this failed to keep its head above water and well and truly sank to the bottom of the ocean. At number 8, we've got a game that came out of the blue. It excited a lot of people, but then once the game came out, the excitement levels dropped pretty quickly. And I'm talking about Rage 2. It's a huge misfire, because when it first was announced on the back of, Andrew WK playing that song at E3, the gameplay came out. It looked like a mashup with Doom-style gunplay with a Mad Max kind of open world feel, and it set everybody crazy. I personally couldn't wait to dive into this game. However, what we got was a clash of ideals. We had a scattered approach to mission design, meaning that every time combat was about to find a sweet spot, it was over. As soon as you'd start enjoying something, it was done. It was so quick. And then you spent a monotonous amount of time driving around and looking at the same scenery over and over again, which is very annoying because at its core, Rage 2 is a phenomenal shooter. It is phenomenal. But when you're asking the player to go through all these environments to find hidden lore that could be hidden anywhere and no way to actually find it, you've got fights that are cut short. You're getting kicked back to checkpoints because you rock up at a random spot that could have a high difficulty spike and you're instantly killed. It turns this game into a sequel that nobody really asked for, into something that all gamers should avoid, which is very upsetting for a game that had so much potential. Coming in at number 7, we've got The Division 2. And I wrestled with not wanting to have this game put on this list, but the more I tried to find redeeming qualities, the more I realized this game really didn't have any, and for the most part, it felt like a glorified DLC for the original Division game. Don't get me wrong, the original Division game, it had its bugs, it had its glitches, but I still had a lot of fun in it. Not the storyline, but more so running around in the dark zone with my friends and going rogue and stealing people's loot. That's where the fun for the Division came from. And then they changed some of the systems and that fun just dropped off. And where they could have and should have taken steps in a forward direction to add new mechanics and new technologies for the players to use, we pretty much were given a handful of new things, but most of the stuff we were given were rehashed and reskinned from the original game. However, that being said, I didn't really expect much out of this game because it's from Ubisoft. And that pretty much sums up my my thoughts on The Division 2. Coming in at number 6 is a game that I was severely let down by this year, and that's Kingdom Hearts 3. Now this could have well and truly ended up on my top 10 video games of 2019 list had the things that I'm about to talk about not been changed within Kingdom Hearts 3. I've been a huge fan of this franchise since I was a kid, and the memories that I have created playing this game will stay with me for a very long time as a gamer. But that's part of the reason why this game has made the list. There were a few points that really had me scratching my head wondering whether this is the game that we as fans truly deserved as a sequel to follow up Kingdom Hearts 2. They replaced summons with teacup rides and Disneyland trains, and I feel that was a mistake because the summons themselves were a part of the Kingdom Hearts magic. I just loved being able to bring the genie in or summon Simba in and have them come in and lend us a hand. I know they still had some summons to some extent, but it didn't feel the same, and it was just weird, like with the teacup spawning in and riding on the train and stuff, that, you know, and the rapid water ride, it kind of just came out of nowhere, and it didn't sit right with myself. I don't know how you guys feel if you guys have played it, but with me, it felt a little bit disconnected from what we'd been given in previous installments. Then we talk about the fact that Final Fantasy has played a huge part in the franchise up until this point, but then we come to Kingdom Hearts 3 and we don't have much of a representation, if any, within this game, which I think, again, just like the subtle little changes they've made that ended up having big implications, had the game falling a little bit short of the mark that I had set for this game to have been at. And with that being said, the ending, I feel the ending felt really flat as well. We're not going to discuss how the game ended because we're not going to be doing any spoilers for, you know, storylines or anything like that with these top 10s. But I just feel I had a vision for where the game would go, and I think many fans of the franchise have their own vision of how the game would have played out as well. And unfortunately for me, it didn't live up to the hype. I'm not saying by any means it's an absolutely terrible game, because I still did find some redeeming factors about this game. I'd say this falls under the disappointing column more than the worst column, which is upsetting because I really wanted to love this game, but there was just so much going on that gave me mixed feelings. At number 5, we have Generation Zero. And on first glance, I really wanted to love this game. It had the Terminator-like concept of robots taking control and humans fighting back for survival. But it was hasta la vista, baby, real quick for this game. And, you know, that's when you actually got to play it, because the game was so buggy and constantly crashing on players playing on the console that they weren't even able to experience the game at all, which already puts this game on the back foot. The level designs were lazy and monotonous, item distribution between players was unbalanced, and an experience that catered for multiplayer activity quickly became a fight for who held the best items, which, when you're playing with friends, I can understand the banter, and I do that with my friends. When we play online, you always fight to get the legendary items, and you take it away and keep it for yourself. But when you're presented with a game like this, that promotes that multiplayer connectivity, it takes away from that mechanic, and I feel it left a gaping hole in what could have been a very promising game. Very unfortunate, because this game had so much promise, and the more I look at the trailer back without trying to put in the back of my head the issues I know the game has, the initial concept looks absolutely brilliant. It's just execution fell way short of the mark. At number 4, we have Crackdown 3. After delay after delay after delay, you would have thought the game we were given would have been a complete experience we could all enjoy. And if you thought that, you were well and truly wrong. Because it's basically a reskinning of Crackdown 2. It's absolutely far from the game that was promised. Not to mention the marketing using Terry Crews, leading everyone to believe he'll play a big part in the game, turned out to be, well, just a marketing thing. He, at best, is an NPC that lends nothing to the game at all, which is very, very upsetting, because a lot of people would have thought he might have been a playable character, or could have been a companion that would have had some real witty comedic value, and offers absolutely zero. Crackdown 3, at best, is a sandbox that had so much promise, which unfortunately turned out to be nothing but a lifeless experience that some waited 9 years to dive into. And if I was one of those players that had waited 9 years for a follow-up from Crackdown 2 and was given Crackdown 3, I would be seriously pissed off. Coming in at number 3, we have a game that is undoubtedly one of the most broken games that I've ever played on first day release, and I'm one of those idiots who bought into No Man's Sky on first day release as well, so when it comes to shit being broken, I'm not a stranger at all to playing broken experiences. But we're talking about WWE 2K20. I'm currently playing through the My Career mode on my channel right now. For some of you who have been following the series, you would have seen some of the bugs and glitches that we have come across so far. But on first day release, the game was almost unplayable. The actual My Career mode that I'm recording, I had to restart from scratch 3 separate occasions, one of which was because I had a logo on the back of the jacket of one of my superstars. That logo itself broke the game completely. And that wasn't a downloaded logo, that was a logo that came complete with the game on release. So you'd think you'd be able to use stuff like that, but I was rudely mistaken. Although a patch has came to clear some of the issues up, this game is still buggy and glitchy as hell, which is severely upsetting because I had so many plans to do different things with 2K20 that I've now had to scratch, because I do not want to have a series on the channel that is just bug after glitch after bug after glitch, let alone having numerous series from the same game. I just very upset as a player of the 2K series and having supported the WWE gaming franchise since they were WWF. And I know that's part to the fact that they had Ukes pull out on them halfway through development and they pushed for a release date, and they really should have just taken the time to clean this game up, because it was, without a doubt, as much as I have loved the storyline of the My Career mode, that is the only redeeming quality from this game. Well and truly one of the worst WWE games I've ever played in history, let alone one of the worst I've played in 2019. Coming in at number 2, we have Left Alive, which actually really shocked me because Square Enix helped publish this game, and with the classic games that this company has brought to the forefront, I really had high hopes for this game being on the same vein of those classic titles and being a game that I would fall in love with. It's the first game in nearly a decade in the Front Mission Sci-Fi Mech War series, which I have played previous installments of, which is why I was so hyped to dive into this game. It's basically a game built on stealth, and it's borrowed the franchise's artist from Metal Gear Solid, Yoji Shinkawa, and you can see the likenesses of the art style of Left Alive and Metal Gear. You really can. That's not the problem. The problem is the terrible AI in this game. It is absolutely ridiculous. It just falls flat on its face at nearly everything it attempts to do. The story and characters aren't that compelling. The stealth is really piss poor, and it gets thrown out the window pretty quick thanks to being forced into combat, which I don't understand. A game that is stealth based forces you to initiate contact with an AI. I don't understand that at all. And the combat, when you do jump into it, is absolutely laughable because of how terrible it's presented. I mean, if you look at it from that aspect and the fact that I was having a decent laugh, you could say that's a positive and that it's got something going for it, and the fact that, you know, it brought me a little bit of joy, even though I was laughing at it and not with it. Left Alive, just well and truly a game you should do your best at avoiding at all costs. At number 1, which unfortunately this time around with this top 10 you really don't want to be on this list at all, let alone the number 1 placeholder, comes a game that I'm assuming will be on a lot of people's worst games of 2019 list, and that's Anthem. You know, once upon a time when we spoke about BioWare and games associated with BioWare, it implied that you were going to get a game of quality and creativity. And now when you talk about BioWare, it's not so much the case. It really represents a coming home to roost, not only for decisions enacted by Electronic Arts, who, even though they redeemed themselves a little bit with Jedi Fallen Order, they've still got a long way to go until EA get back to where they used to be. But a lot of apparent in-house issues with BioWare put a halt to a lot of the things going on with Anthem. And it became a lengthy cycle of mismanagement, and the sci-fi shooter just turned out to be incredibly dull, absolutely shallow. There was no technical polish to the game at all, which was upsetting because that first trailer that came out showing the fact that you can get into these javelins and fly around and look like you're Tony Stark in an Iron Man suit and take the fight to the people, and the fact that it was multiplayer and you had different javelins, so each of you would all have your little, you know, skill sets and everything, that excited myself and my friends. We were actually really keen to dive into this, but I'm glad each of us held off and didn't dive in, because we probably would have been amongst the large list of players that were demanding their money back with this game, especially if you bought it on the PS4, because this game ran a risk of bricking your console if you were attempting to play Anthem, which I don't blame the PS4 community for being absolutely distraught when this game came out. This list has been nothing but games that held so much promise and fell so short, and Anthem just sets the standard for what a game could have been and never became. It really is the torchbearer for the worst game of 2019, but the torchbearer for, hey, have a look at me, I had so much promise but turned out to be a smoking piece of shit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another Arghgodzirra'S top 10 list. Thank you for joining me as always. As I said in the beginning of the video, gotta let me know in the comment section down below when it comes to your worst game or games of 2019. We want to start getting some discussion going in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. You guys didn't let me down in the first video. Don't let me down this time. Top 10s are going to be coming to the channel in a big way in 2020 and beyond. The next one that you can keep an eye out for is discussing my top 10 games of the decade. We're going to try and get that out before 2020 hits, and then once 2020 does hit, we'll be talking about my top 10 most anticipated video games for 2020. Top 10s here on the channel aren't going to be just gaming related. We are going to dive into other facets as well. For those of you who do know me outside of the YouTube area, I'm a huge horror fan, so being able to do some horror related content that isn't gaming related would be great. I just want to start branching out, finding different avenues for us to sit down and enjoy content with one another, get some discussions going, and just engage as a community. As I said in the last video, I am so proud of the community we are building together. I couldn't be happier to have you guys as part of this community. So if you're new to the channel and you're not part of the Godzirra Nation yet, hit that subscribe button and pledge your allegiance to the Godzirra Nation. Hit that little bell next to it so you get notified every single time something brand new hits the channel. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.